Welcome to Bed Crime Stories podcast. I'm your host, T. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, bed crimers. As always, I wish you the best. To anyone new here, a warm welcome. Thank you for checking out my channel. Let me just ask that after listening to or watching this video, if you learned something or enjoyed it, please do me a favor and smash that like button. Now, let's dig in. In the prosecution's opening statement in the Lori Vallow Daybell trial, they said the case is about money, power, and sex. I think the state left off one very important element, and that is religion. You cannot talk about Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell without mentioning religion. Vallow, Daybell, and religion go hand in hand. Both started their religious lives rooted in the tenets of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But over time, both veered way off the path to embrace radical ideas that the LDS Church does not espouse. In the event that you are unfamiliar with this case, let me just tell you that Lori Vallow Daybell is currently on trial and facing charges relating to the deaths of her 7-year-old adopted son, J.J. Vallow, her 16-year-old daughter, Tylee Ryan, and her 5th husband's wife, Tammy Daybell. Vallow is facing other charges as well, including for conspiracy in the death of her 4th husband, Charles Vallow, in Arizona, but who's counting at this point? If she's convicted, Lori Vallow will spend the rest of her life in prison. When Lori met fledgling author Chad Daybell, who specialized in books about his supposed near-death experiences and the end of times, aka Doomsday, at a religious conference in Utah in October of 2018, she and he were married to other people. But per Lori's then best friend, Melanie Gibb, that fact did not diminish the sparks that flew between them. Gibb witnessed the meeting and said they pretty much hit it off. Both Lori and Chad were members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as I stated, but both embraced ideas that were not part of the Mormon Church's tenets. Some of these ideas were coming from LDS splinter groups dedicated to preparing the people for the second coming of Jesus Christ. Chad was at the conference to talk about revelations he claimed he'd received from beyond the veil, meaning from spirits who had died and gone to another state that lies beyond death. As Lori listened to Chad's talk during that October 2018 conference, she appeared to be enraptured. Here's a photo of her during that talk. Per Lori's best friend, Melanie Gibb, she and Lori were sucked in by Chad's tales of his near-death experiences, his supposed visions, and his ability to tell others about their past and future lives. You see, Chad's claim to fame was that his veil had supposedly been torn open, and thus he could see things others could not. From what I understand, those who follow the Mormon faith believe in a spirit world that exists between death and the resurrection. As part of that, they believe that human beings have a veil of forgetfulness that makes them forget their past lives. Chad, by claiming his veil had been torn open, was also claiming that he had a window into that spirit world and could communicate with the spirits dwelling there. And he could remember all of his own past lives, as well as those of other people. For Lori and Melanie, this meant Chad could tell them about their past lives, who they'd been, what experiences they'd lived through in past probations, meaning in past lives. So Chad was kind of a big deal to Lori and Melanie, almost like a religious rock star. Melanie Gibb to this day seems to believe that Chad Daybell has real gifts and that, tragically, his gifts were used by the adversary, meaning Satan, to commit evil deeds. Take a listen to what she told reporter Nate Eaton of East Idaho News.
Chad had this influence on people because he had visionary experience. He could see things. At least he said, he portrays that he did. But I do believe that when you think somebody can see things or have visionary experiences about things, you tend to kind of believe them more than the average person. Because, if you ask me, I'd say I don't see anything. So you wouldn't take my point of view or my opinion. But if you had somebody that was really good at having visionary, because he often said that it was like the veil was open when he had his near-death experiences. So he often said that veil is open all the time. So he had this way of seeing things that Lori and I didn't have that.
Lori Vallow, I think, also believes and believed in Chad's gifts. I think this may explain why she found this rather awkward man with a double chin, midlife belly, dad jeans, and not always a lot of confidence, hot, attractive, and the husband of her dreams. I also think Lori was impressed by Chad's minor celebrity in their fringe Mormon circles. According to Melanie Gibb, at the conference, Lori, who'd read some of Chad's books, went straight up to him to introduce herself. I can imagine her all bubbly and smiling and telling Chad how much she enjoyed his talk and his books. And I can also imagine Chad gazing at this blonde beauty and feeling thrilled that she was interested in him. For Chad, who I see as a very manipulative man and also a womanizer, I think he decided to start having this gift as a way to make money. And one of the side perks of this gig was going to conferences without his wife Tammy and meeting people, including the occasional attractive woman who wanted to talk to him. I call Chad a womanizer because Melanie Gibb told Nate Eaton that on that conference weekend, Chad told Lori, a married lady he just met, that he and she had been married 5 times in previous probations, meaning in previous lives. Note that Chad had also said the same thing to a rather successful female author that he admired, and I think that he tried to emulate. Her name is Julie Rowe. Here's what Melanie Gibb said about Lori and Chad that weekend in October of 2018.
He was teaching us about some of his understandings about multiple lives and things of that nature. But at that point, he had already shared with her when they met in St. George that they had been married multiple times before. So that was established when they first met.
Chad told Lori when they first met that they had been married before?
Not in this, right now in this earth life, but in multiple earth lives.
In a previous life.
Mm-hmm.
And according to Melanie Gibb, both Lori and Chad would later use this bit about being married in previous probations to justify having an affair behind their spouses' backs, saying that Charles and Tammy would understand the affair and be okay with it for this reason. Really? I don't think so. It's come out that Tammy Daybell confronted Chad about having an affair a week or so before she was asphyxiated in her bed. And we know that Charles Vallow knew Lori was sending Chad videos of herself dancing. You see, Lori had mirrors put up in her house so she could watch herself as she danced. Charles knew that Lori was cheating on him. According to Melanie Gibb, after meeting, Lori and Chad began talking on the phone every day. They then recorded some podcasts together, one of which was recorded at Lori's home in Arizona. Chad had traveled there from his home in Idaho, and he was staying in Lori and Charles' house overnight while Charles was out of town on business. When the cat's away, the mice will play. One thing Lori and Chad had in common from the start was that they both believed that they were to be among the chosen 144,000 mentioned in the book of Revelation who would survive Satan's efforts to destroy humanity, and thus they'd both be around for the second coming. According to the son of Lori's brother, Adam Cox, right around the time Lori met Chad Daybell, she'd been spending upwards of 8 hours a day, every day, at her local Mormon temple. Around this same time, Lori had told her husband Charles that she was married to a celebrated angel in the LDS faith, an angel named Moroni, and that Jesus appeared to her in the temple, and that she and he, Jesus, had regular tete-a-tetes there. I think it's safe to say that Lori was already in the throes of some delusions of grandeur and possible mental illness before she met Chad Daybell. And Chad obviously was claiming that he was special because he had visions and could speak to spirits on the other side of the veil. This tells me that Chad also had delusions of grandeur. Now, don't get me wrong, I do believe some people have real psychic gifts, but those people are rare. Do I believe Chad Daybell has these gifts? No. For Chad, who needed to make a living, embracing this new talent of his was a way to sell books and to become a regular speaker on the doomsday / preparing the people circuit. So you have these two people who were already both a little bonkers, in my opinion, coming together and pooling their craziness and their egos. It wasn't long before they allegedly became a couple on the scale of, say, Bonnie and Clyde, Paul Bernardo and Kara Homolka, and Ian Brady and Myra Hindley, and others. I am saying allegedly because I don't want to get sued, but I personally believe that these two monsters are, along with Lori's deceased brother Alex, responsible for 4 innocent human beings' deaths. It wasn't long before Chad started telling Lori about new revelations he was receiving from the other side. Per Gibb, Chad told Lori that she was the most powerful woman on earth, and that her mission was to help him lead the 144,000. To Lori, this had to have sounded like the most important job ever. And I'm sure Chad's revelations soon became like crack cocaine to her. She liked the way they made her feel, and she wanted more. Chad and Lori then began telling Lori's somewhat gullible brother, Alex Cox, Lori's friend Melanie Gibb, Alex and Lori's niece, another Melanie named Melanie Boudreau, and one of Gibb's friends, a lady named Zulema Pastinas, that they too were chosen to be among the 144,000, and each one had a special assignment to fulfill in that second coming. Listen to how Melanie Gibb described this for Nate Eaton.
Did you feel, or did they make you feel special or chosen as they're teaching you these things, that you are one of the elect and you need to be with us?
Yep.
And how did that make you feel?
First I thought it was me. Who, me? Right. So first you have that feeling of, I don't feel like that's something, because I didn't get that personally from God, so I thought it was unusual. So she kind of had to keep talking me into it. That makes sense. Like, you really are. You need to believe this, and with much enthusiasm.
This is where I believe Chad Daybell was once again showing how manipulative he could be, and Lori too. They were blowing smoke up all these people's butts to make them feel important and make them believe that they had a critical role to play in that second coming. It wasn't long before Chad was telling Lori that her husband, Charles Vallow, had been taken over by an evil spirit / demon named Ned or Nick Schneider. Per Chad, Charles was basically dead, and this demon was inhabiting his body. Per Melanie Gibb, Lori found this information quite odd at first, but eventually she embraced the idea, Or maybe she pretended that it was true. And again, I see this as a manipulative move by Chad Daybell to get Lori to dump her husband Charles for him. Now, that's not to say that Lori wasn't ready and willing to dump Charles. According to a friend of hers named April Raymond, Lori was already feeling like Charles wasn't her spiritual equal. And Melanie Gibb has said that Lori and Charles were fighting. Maybe in Chad, Lori began to see her religious equal, maybe even her religious better. So as Chad is whispering sweet revelations in Lori's ear, and Lori is then passing them on to Melanie Gibb, her brother Alex Cox, her niece Melanie Boudreau, this lady Zulema Pastines, and others, slowly and informally, a religious group or cult began to form. And it was based on this second coming of Christ and all these people's important assignments. Chad told Melanie Gibb that she was to be a gatherer. Now, I'm guessing this meant to gather more of the chosen people. Alex Cox was told that he was a warrior, as well as his sister Lori's protector. Zulema Pastines was given the role of controller of the elements. This meant that Zulema could, apparently through her thoughts and prayers and words, create earthquakes, fires, thunderstorms, basically all sorts of bad weather as needed. It sounds silly, but I think some of these people must have been at a place in their lives where they needed a purpose and they needed to believe that they were special, like everyone kind of does. I read that cults typically start small like this, informally, and then they blossom over time. Soon this group was gathering to do what they called castings. A casting, per Melanie Gibb, was when a bunch of Chad and Lori's followers would get together to try and coax evil spirits out of someone's body. They would do this by speaking to the evil spirit and saying things like, "Come over to the light." The group held their first casting at Zulema's house, and there they tried to cast this Ned Schneider evil spirit out of Charles Vallow's body. The group allegedly held several castings for Charles because more than one evil spirit, according to Chad, apparently inhabited Charles' body. The group also held a casting for Melanie Boudreau's then husband, Brandon Boudreau. Here are some of the other beliefs Chad, with Lori by his side, taught their small group of followers. 1. That people had multiple probations, meaning multiple lives on earth. It sounds like Chad was telling people that to get to a certain exalted position, they would have to go through a number of probations on earth to learn lessons as they went through all these lives. 2. That the end of times, aka doomsday, was imminent and that it was going to occur on Wednesday, July 22nd of 2020. Nice work, Chad. So glad that day has come and gone. 3. That each member of their new group was A, among the very special 144,000 chosen people. Great way to get people to sign up for your new religion. Tell them they're special and they have an important assignment. 4, that Lori could give patriarchal blessings or prayers, even though she was a female. You see, in the Mormon Church, only men can do this. 5, that Chad could create portals. Now, a portal is an invisible area where he and Lori could interact and connect spiritually. Here's how Melanie Gibb described Chad's portals.
And Chad made a portal in Lori's closet so she can visit him. What does that mean? That sounds kind of crazy, I'll be honest.
It does sound crazy. So a portal is something that he created for her. I don't know exactly how he did it, but maybe...
Like a box?
No, it's just a spot where he just maybe said a prayer or, however he words he uses to create this portal, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there. I don't know.
Sure.
But it's not like he could come through it physically, but it was a way for them to interact spiritually.
So Chad's portal was said to be on his bed in Rexburg, Idaho. Comfy. Lori's portal was in her closet in Arizona. Not so comfy. Doesn't sound like Chad made portals for anyone else. 6. That people were either rated light or dark, depending on whom they had signed a contract with in a premortal time. If an individual signed a contract with God, then they were rated light. So naturally, Chad, Lori, Melanie Gibb, Melanie Boudreau, Zulema Pastines, and Alex Cox were all rated light. But if someone had signed a contract with Satan, then that person was rated as dark. Gibbs said Chad wrote up all these elaborate charts showing who was light and who was dark. What's interesting is that anyone who might have been seen as being in the way of Chad and Lori being together was rated dark. So Lori's husband, Charles Vallow, was dark right out of the gate. Lori's daughter, Tylee, who had a strong personality and who probably saw straight through Chad Daybell's BS, was also deemed dark. Chad's wife, Tammy, started out light, but eventually ended up dark. And Lori's 7-year-old son, JJ, also went from light to dark. Other dark-rated people included Brandon Boudreau and Lori's other brother, Adam, who didn't buy into his sister's religious beliefs. It's interesting to me that none of Chad Daybell's children ended up on the dark-rated list. Note that many of the dark-rated people in Chad and Lori's orbit either ended up dead or attempts were made on their lives. 7. Another of Chad's revelations was that people who were rated dark could turn into zombies. You heard that right, zombies. Melanie Gibb has said that zombies, per Chad, were a little different from evil spirits, but honestly, I'm kind of unclear as to how. Chad and Lori told their followers that another of their missions, meaning Chad and Lori's missions, in addition to leading the 144,000, was to rid the world of zombies. I'm pretty sure Chad came up with this zombie idea after watching Harry Potter movies or The Walking Dead. Now, it's unclear if Chad and Lori told their followers, like Melanie Gibb and Melanie Boudreau, what means or method they were really planning to use to get rid of zombies. I get the feeling that Gibb believed Lori and Chad would be saying prayers and special words to accomplish this. According to Gibb, Chad and Lori told her that the zombie inhabiting Charles Vallow's body was supposed to die in a car crash. They said the same thing about Chad's wife Tammy, that she was supposed to die in a car crash, that these incidents were destined to happen in order to allow Chad and Lori to get married and fulfill their destiny. But when Charles and Tammy failed to die in car crashes, Melanie Gibb asked Lori, "So now what?" The problem for Chad and Lori was, 1, they didn't have any special powers. 2, they didn't want to get divorced from their spouses, I think, because this would mean losing their temple privileges, and Lori's favorite place was her temple. In addition, both Chad and Lori planned to cash in on their spouses' rather large life insurance policies after they died. Lori thought that after Charles died, she would receive $1 million. And Chad actually took out several life insurance policies worth a total of $430,000 on Tammy before she suddenly died in October of 2019. And guess what? Chad actually got that money. If we are to believe Melanie Gibb, then Lori, Chad, and Alex did not tell her or the others that when fate failed to get rid of people like Charles Vallow and Tammy Daybell, then they, allegedly, took fate into their own hands. We know that Alex Cox shot Charles Vallow on July 11th of 2019, and he claimed it was self-defense. Chad's wife, Tammy, died on October 19th of 2019. Although her cause of death was first ruled due to natural causes, the authorities later discovered Tammy had been asphyxiated. Tylee and JJ, after being deemed zombies, disappeared and then were found buried on Chad Daybell's property. Again, the people who turned into zombies seemed to be anyone who would prevent Chad and Lori from getting married, moving to Hawaii, living a carefree life on their commingled life insurance monies, all that without having to take care of Lori's minor children. So who exactly harmed JJ, Tylee, and Tammy? Many believe Alex Cox was recruited by Chad and Lori to be the warrior, the protector, the family hitman, telling him that he was special, and this was his mission. And per Melanie Gibb, Alex told her that he 100% believed in zombies. Conveniently, Alex died in December of 2019, so he can't be tried for any of these crimes. And supposedly, before he died, Alex expressed to his wife of 13 days, Zulema Pastines, the fear that he was going to be the person thrown under the bus by Chad and Lori, and that he would be the fall guy. Personally, I believe that Chad and Lori's radical religious beliefs were born out of them wanting to be together as a couple, wanting to get ample money into their bank accounts, wanting to run away and live the good life in Hawaii, away from the responsibilities of children, and wanting to feel important, to have influence and power over other people, their followers, and to have a degree of prestige in their religious circle. The irony of this evil tale is that the people who rated others as dark were themselves the ones who'd made contracts with Satan, if you believe in such things, and the ones deemed dark by Chad and Lori, Charles Vallow, Tammy Daybell, JJ, and Tylee, were actually the light-rated people, the good people, the decent human beings, the innocent ones. May they all rest in peace. Until the next time on Bed Crime Stories. Now do me a favor, smash the like button, leave me a comment, subscribe if you're not yet subscribed. Share this channel with your friends and family so that we can grow it. Let's get some more views over here.